Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville, and welcome to another video where I'm going to bang on about something I've spoken a little bit about before. How the industry has changed under COVID. The watch industry has changed. And things that we've got used to for so long, massive oversupply of inventory, lots of stuff going to the grey market and getting discounts, are being curtailed, if not shut down completely. As a small channel, not a lot of people hear me, so I haven't got a lot of feedback. Even then, people have been disbelieving, feeling that things will revert back to normal. I will say it's been very interesting to me that people have been, on one hand, denying that discounts can go away for brands that aren't Rolex, whilst at the same time complaining of the very effect of discounts going away. And there I'll refer you to all of these people talking about Seiko price rises. The fact is, and it's a fact, Seiko MSRPs have barely shifted. What you are feeling is an absence of discounts on what was always expected to be the price you would pay for everything from an SKX to a Sumo. So these things are happening. You are feeling them now. In other forums, in other contexts, many of you are complaining about these very effects, about how discounts are getting harder and harder to get. The bad news is I don't think it's going to go away. I think this is the new reality. After the intro, I will tell you the 4 things that the watch industry is doing to bake in what you're feeling now. That is less supply, less discounting, and having to pay more for your watches. Hi, as I said earlier, a lot of people, when you talk about that, discounts are going away, kind of just tend to blow it off and go, that's just someone's bright idea. They've sent an email out from head office to the ADs, stop doing this, and eventually ADs will start doing it again. I've been saying for some time that's not true, that there are structural things going on that are changing the way the landscape works. If you go back through the records, go back through like the financial reports and the annual reports given by people like from LVMH, Richemont, Swatch, they all say the same thing. For 5 years, for as long as I've been doing this kind of analysis, every year they all say we're trying to get on top of the grey market, we're buying back stock, we're cutting back on distribution. So this isn't hidden. They've been saying they're going to do it for at least half a decade. When Georges Kern took over Breitling, he said the same thing in interview after interview. We're cutting back on our inventory. We're not going to be allowing dumping to the grey market. We're getting better control of our distribution. One of the things the reason why I'm talking about this now is this has become topical again. A lot of the bigger YouTube channels that people pay more attention to have begun to say the same thing. A couple of weeks ago, Federico made a comment about how Breitling basically got pulled from his grey dealer site. Omega is under a lot of pressure. Some other OEMs are reaching out and asking to stop things. We've had Bruce Williams talk about something I'd heard of but hadn't really had evidence of, which is messing around with AD margins in Omega. And the guys from Watch Collecting Strategy have recently said the same thing. Their videos have got the same comments that my videos got, that this is a flash in the pan. This is some guy's bright spark idea, and in a couple of weeks this will all blow over and we'll be going back. Again, not true. Structural changes have taken place. I will tell you what the 4 big structural changes I see have occurred or are in the process of occurring that mean the kinds of discounts, the kinds of roles that the grey market had in the past for a lot of brands are going away or changing. The first is there is some evidence that OEMs, brands, are raising the wholesale price but not raising the MSRPs. Essentially, they are eating part of the margins that the ADs had to give you a discount. In the past, if there was a margin, a retail margin of 45% between wholesale and MSRP, the dealer had a fair bit to move and still make enough money to put food on the table. If I shrink that margin down to 25%, down from 45% to 35 to 25%, your margin, the margin that the AD even has to make any kind of profit, to pay the person who is selling you that watch, is drastically reduced. There is some evidence that that's been going on for some time. This is going to put some ADs under pressure. And again, the brands don't care. If the AD can't support that and they fall over, they just get replaced by a company boutique. That model, you can see it everywhere, that brands are clearly putting pressure on ADs. ADs are failing and being replaced by boutiques. This is all part of this idea of sort of task number one: constrict the ability of the AD to actually offer a discount in the first place, and then have plans to sell your watches in the absence of that AD. The second thing that all watch companies are doing, but a lot of the watch companies that are famously now not offering discounts are doing, is they are changing their inventory and their catalog to rely a lot more on limited editions, special editions, capsule collections, short run, just quick and dirty, get it out, sell it, then bring it back in. What that does is it reduces the chance, the possibility of excess inventory that can be mass dumped into the marketplace. A lot of you have complained that, for example, a Seiko special edition. Seiko have done this limited edition, say the Brian May thing, where there were 5,000, 6,000 of these watches made available. And a lot of you have said that's not a limited edition at all. There's nothing special about that. And you're right, there's not. But it does something special for Seiko. See, if they have a run of, say, 5,000 watches, what that means is your average AD will get one. Some of your bigger ADs might get 2 or 3. And what that means is there cannot be mass dumping of those watches to Jomashop. If Jomashop want to get 100 of them to sell at 40% off, they have to go to 50 different ADs and get all of them. And that's assuming that those ADs weren't able to sell the 1 or 2, or weren't willing to carry the 1 or 2 they had. You see the same happening with every other brand. Omega is doing it a lot. Breitling's doing it a lot. They're bringing in these short run watches, selling them, getting them out to the ADs, and then moving on to the next product release. And the beauty of that is, from their point of view, there's lots of turnover in the catalog, lots of new things to have media releases about, lots of discussion in the media and the social media terms about their new watch, whilst at the same time limited to no risk of having that dumped to Jomashop or Chronext and turn up at 40% off. The third thing we're seeing is what I believe to be a permanent throttling of production. As I said before, companies have wanted to do this for a while. They've been talking about getting better control of their production and distribution for at least as long as I've been reading their annual reports. But that costs money. That is difficult to do. That is always going to be, and it's been flagged in separate reports by Deloitte and Morgan Stanley as being a time of considerable pain that all of the industry is going to have to go through. Well, COVID gave them that. It fast-tracked that. It supercharged that activity. Suddenly, companies were able to shut down production for days, weeks, months. They were able to get rid of ADs. They were able to get rid of suppliers. They were able to offload, say, 10% of their workforce, which seems to be about the number. And all the same time, not having to deal with angry shareholders because it's COVID. At the same time, not having to worry too much about going out of business because they were getting tax breaks, they were getting handouts, they were getting all sorts of support from various governments around the world. So as long as they kept the doors open and employed most of their staff and kept most of their catalogue going and kept most of their production chugging along, they were able to drastically reduce their cost base permanently and maintain profitability. The win-win of every organization that's trying to do this kind of structural step change. And I think that's exactly what they've done. We are not going to see mass hirings. We are not going to see mass bringing back those suppliers who were cut off. Production has been cut and it will stay cut. And companies are making as much or more profit than they were when they were making more watches. And they're going to be very happy with that. And so that's the situation we're going to be stuck with. Okay, so far what I've said is that they're going to raise the wholesale prices, reduce the opportunity for people to sell at massive discount. Secondly, what they're going to do is have more limited and short run and controlled catalogs, which again reduce the opportunity for people to sell large amounts of stock at large discounts. The third thing is they're going to rein in production and not let that run riot like it has in the past and have large amounts of excess inventory. None of those things are going to be perfect. They still have their bread and butter models that they have to sell large amounts of, that they have to have large amounts of inventory out there in the field. And given that there is these large amounts of inventory out there, and that there is always therefore going to be the likelihood, the possibility for ADs to lump up 5, 10, 20 of these watches, sell them en masse, and then have them turning up on the grey market at the kinds of discounts we want, or driving the kinds of discounts we want at ADs. There is a fourth thing that the brands are doing to control that risk. And that is the brands are proactively policing their distribution networks. They are proactively going out there and mystery shopping from grey dealers. And this is what Federico spoke openly about Omega doing this to him. Actively going out, purchasing as a mystery shopper a product, getting the serial numbers, tracing that back to the AD that serial number was supplied to, and then disciplining that AD, potentially pulling their supply, potentially limiting their access to good watches that they can sell not at discount, all sorts of things that they can do. And as Federico said, there is evidence that this has been done. He was once able to sell Breitlings as a grey market dealer. He can no longer do that. The ADs that he was sourcing those from will no longer distribute watches to him. If you look at Chronext, if you look at Chronext, they haven't got a new Breitling that's less than 3 years old. If you go to Joma Shop, it's all old stock. There's no new Breitlings. The very, very few you get are at either at retail or a couple of % off. There is stuff there at big discounts, but it's old. It's 4, 5, 6 years old stock that has been hanging around before these rules were implemented. And like I said, I'm talking Breitling because that's a brand I follow, but you see the same sorts of things happening with Seiko, with Omega, with a whole bunch of other brands. So those are the 4 things that brands have baked in to enshrine this lack of discounting. So like I said, the bad news is you're going to be paying more for your watches. The good news is you will get price certainty. Anyone who's ever seen a deal but not wanted to press ahead because maybe you can get a better deal tomorrow, maybe someone else will be able to buy that same watch at 30% off later and you're going to feel like an idiot, that feeling will go away. The price will be what the price will be. And at most, you might be talking about a difference in 5%. between what you pay and any other guy does. So maybe that's worth something to you. Anyway, I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. This is my take on the watch industry and watch discounting. Interested in your thoughts. Do you think that they'll have the discipline to stick to this? Or do you think that at some point they're going to pump the market full of product again for some short-term cash injections? I don't believe so, but maybe you do. What do you think? Do us a solid and like this video. Better still, subscribe to the channel. Best of all, hit the notification button and get more of these videos. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches, and I'll see you later. Bye.